What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck with you. Buck, we went matching sweatshirts today. We are, and I was having a coffee, and you're having a coffee here. So I feel like we're kind of on the same. Yeah, we are representing the brand. That's right. But we're kind of on the same page here this morning. How was your night last night? Did you get a chance to watch those ball games?
I mean, I did have a chance to watch both of them. I'm in North Carolina hanging with my parents, so I got a chance to watch the Vikings in Chicago. I paid more attention to than the Raiders. I caught the end of the Raiders game for the most part, but it was interesting. The Minnesota Vikings keep rolling. The Bears are a mess, and
oh my gosh,
that job.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah, that job is going to be a tougher job than everyone thinks about it.
Yeah, no doubt. It's time for the lead block presented by T-Mobile for Business. Football needs a network willing to go the extra yards. So do you. Go further with T-Mobile for Business. It's interesting read right there going into this game, because if we start on the Bears side of things, I was trying to think of all the different things they need to fix and the problems they need to solve in the offseason. But the number one thing, Buck, is they've got to fix the Wi-Fi. The way because we've talked about this, that Caleb is having these freeze moments. If you've been on your Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi freezes, that's what's going on with Caleb. They got to get that out of him, man, where he's just like a glitching and he's just kind of stuck. He's got to get unstuck in the off season.
It's one of the more, it's a weird thing to watch a player that you've seen play very fluid become very robotic. And it's almost as if there were too many voices in his head, too many people telling him how to play. And it's one of the things that you worry about with all players, but particularly players that may be a little unorthodox in their games. Sometimes they try to conform to be more of a traditional player, but the traditional player is not what made them special and set them apart from their peers. And so you're always dancing that fine line between, hey, I need you to be traditional in some aspects, but we love you because of the different stuff that you bring to the table. Don't deviate or stray too far from that part of your game, because that's what separates you from others. It's just really hard to kind of tell him what to listen to and what not to listen to when he's trying to figure out how to play.
Yeah, and I was, just kind of watching the game, and I was thinking, okay, he's going to get hit in the pocket anyways because of a combination of him holding the ball and them not being great up front. So if my guy's going to take hits, I'd rather have him take hits on the other side of the line of scrimmage. You know what I mean? That's why I'm kind of, and I know he's get beat up a little bit, but man, I would be calling more design quarterback runs, Buck, until we kind of get him kind of out of that little rut that he's in.
It's funny, and you would hear athletic quarterbacks talk about this all the time. Cam Newton and some others would talk about it, and they're not the same type player, but Cam would talk about he wouldn't relax until he ran the ball a few times, because when you're at your when the anxiety is at its highest early in the game, you kind of need something to settle that down. And I don't know how it was for you, but for me as a player, everything kind of came back to normal after I touched the ball that first time and got hit, whether it was a kickoff return or catching a pass or whatever. You kind of need to get that out your system so you can settle down and play. And for Caleb, I want to get him into his comfort zone as soon as I can. And so if that's a design quarterback run early in the series, if that's somewhere I put him on the move where he has the option to maybe utilize his legs, but whatever it is, whoever's the play caller, whoever's the head coach next year, they need to make sure they find what makes him tick and what can get him into his comfort zone right away. Because when he's in his comfort zone, he's a much different player than the uncomfortable player that we're watching.
4 carries for 3 yards. And those are mostly scrambles. I don't remember off the top of my head design quarterback runs in that ball game. So I don't know. That was just one of the things I was thinking, trying to loosen him up a little bit. But Trakeman did a good job of going through it on the broadcast, showing hey, you're at the top of your drop. It's there. Take it. It's wide open. Just take it.
Yep.
And he's just kind of stuck and frozen. And sometimes it looks like he's even looking at it, but he won't pull the trigger. So, and I know he's gone a bazillion games in a row without throwing an interception. I mean, I guess that's something you can build off of, but I'd rather live with some interceptions and let him play loose and free and see the guy that we drafted. But I also think the other point Aikman made, which was good, was Aikman was terrible his rookie year. The team wasn't good. He was terrible. We saw it we've seen, Sam Darnold on the other side of the field go through multiple years of not being a great player. Now he's in the right spot, the right fit. Talked a lot about how he learned from Kyle Shanahan about defenses. I thought was fascinating. By the way, Troy Aikman's really good. I don't know how. I'm not getting into ranking broadcasters and people like this guy, don't that guy. he's really good, man. Like that he had some insights in that from his experience playing the position. I thought it was excellent.
You know, it's funny because everyone has talked about Tom Brady and some of the other broadcasters. And one, I would tell anybody, because you and I both done it, it's a much harder deal than anyone can imagine. It is hard to get nuggets in a 30-second window when, so everyone understands the mechanics of the thing. The play-by-play guy has everything to the snap. And then once the play is done, the color guy has everything from the end of the play until the huddle breaks. And so you have to have your points like dialed in. You have to be concise, but you have to be able to be a storyteller within those moments. And it's hard sometimes to process that all in your head to get it out and to make it coherent. And if it's a story that needs multiple plays, to be able to continue to pick up where you left off on the previous play. There's an art to it, which is why when you talk about Troy Aikman and some of the other guys that are revered for what they do, yeah, it's not something that you can just fall out the bed and be great at.
Yeah, no question. I thought he just provided a lot of perspective and really hope for Bears fans too. It's like, hey, this doesn't happen right away for everybody. There's all the tools are in there, all the abilities in there. They need to get the next hire right. They need to get the right person around him. I know there's been talk and people have promoted, okay, we should get Mike Vrabel because of his historical success. The physicality kind of matches the way they want to play. In that city in Chicago to match your environment. That's been, that Marcus Freeman's name has been mentioned, just a short trip over from Notre Dame. Buck, I'm normally like, hey, you get the best leader, that's the right coach, and then you can hire the right coaches around him. In this particular situation, because it is a package that must be handled with care, I don't know how they don't hire an offensive coach where the voice is not going to change, where you can have that same system, same voice in your head. For at least you're committing to, most of these coaches are going to get 3 years. So at least it's a 3-year full commitment to some stability around Caleb Williams.
Yeah, it's really hard because look, I think there's so many things that the Bears have to fix beyond the quarterback. I understand what you're saying about the stability and the continuity that you're guaranteed if the head coach is the play caller or is an offensive mind where he's bringing his own playbook and those things. I just wonder when you're the Bears and they've tried that a few different times. They tried it with Mark Trestman. They tried it with Matt Nagy. They tried it in other iterations. It's such a hard job, and it appears that there's so many people who have kind of their hands in the cookie dough. I think you have to get the best leader, and if you can get the best leader who is offensive centric, then that'd be great. I just think it's a really, really hard job, and I think Caleb Williams is there, but he's kind of there as a backdrop to all the other issues that must be fixed before the Bears can be really, really good.
Yeah, you're right. There are a whole host of issues there. By the way, the other side of things, Minnesota's not done in this division. I mean, we think about the big picture. Shoot, it's all right in front of them.
It's all right in front of them. And this is the thing about the NFL season and why it's really a marathon and not a sprint. For as great as the Detroit Lions have been for the majority of the regular season, they could be a team that limps into the postseason because injuries take them apart. And the team that goes into the playoffs is not the team that we saw for most of the year. Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings have been relatively big injury free. You had Derek Shaw, he's going down. You've had some other bumps and bruises, but for the most part, their core guys are there. And when you look at them, it appears that they're playing better and better each week, which is really a testament to the coaching and that stuff. To me, the Minnesota Vikings are dangerous. They're a legitimate threat to unseat the Detroit Lions as the division leader. And if they win and they're able to kind of like make their way to even home field, very, very difficult team to deal with because KOC in the offense is rolling, and then Brian Flores in their aggressive defense poses a bunch of different problems. Yeah, you're right. Keep an eye on the Minnesota Vikings because they definitely are coming.
I feel like we've been kind of the bad news brigade here when it comes to the Lions. Just it is what it is. I mean, you're coming off of a tough loss. You've had all these injuries. And Buck, what was the matchup we've been talking about that was like, man, the one that I wouldn't love if I were them is the Rams. Mm-hmm. So if you're the Detroit Lions and Minnesota comes and they beat you in that game, I believe it's the last week of the season, you're the 5th seed. You're not only playing the Rams, you're playing the Rams on the road. You're not playing the Rams at home. Like that is a tough matchup for them as the teams are constituted presently.
Yeah, no, it's not a great matchup. It's certainly not something that you want to see. And I'm telling you, there are two things that worry me about the Detroit Lions. And I am the biggest Dan Campbell fan that you can find out there. I'm worried a little bit about the risk taking. I understand the identity, I understand how you built the team, and I understand all of those things like all gas, no brakes, whatever the iteration of being aggressive is. However, I want you to be aggressive, but I don't want you to be reckless. And I think sometimes he borders on recklessness when it comes to the decision making. The onside kick um, in that game with 12 minutes left, little reckless. Some of the gambles that they take on when they go for it on their own end of the field, a little reckless. And I don't want to say that I judge him based on the result, but I do worry in the playoffs where really more games are lost than won because the mistakes are magnified. I just worry about him in the decision making in those pressure moments when he's just so apt to go for it. On top of them not having like a full lineup, a complete lineup that really made them different than the other teams in the division.
I've never asked you this question, but I was thinking about, because you've brought up concerns on Sirianni, and we talked about that, right? How Sirianni has a little edginess to him. Buck, I'm learning out, like, he wants even keel. He wants a steady hand at the wheel. He doesn't want the emotional. So then now Dan Campbell, you voice your concerns on Dan Campbell being overly aggressive. So now I was thinking about the coaches that you've been around, like, because I think of Marty Schottenheimer as emotional, like edgy. Coughlin, the unique how he operates, but I think there's an energy and to him. And then I think of Mike Holmgren, and from the outside looking in, it seems like that's just like a steady, calm presence. So I'm curious what your take is on the coaches you've been around and what has given you this perspective, because I do feel like, Buck, I know you well enough to know that I think that you prefer somebody just be, hey, let's even keel, let's not get too big.
Let's crazy. I mean, man, we can talk about it, man. My high school coach was edgy, but he was consistent. You knew what you were getting every day. Mac Brown, Hall of Famer, very even keeled when it came to his emotional ups and downs. I would say Marv Levy, Hall of Fame coach in Buffalo, very even keel. Mike Holmgren was more of a cerebral coach. He could explode, but he still kind of thought of the game a little differently. I would say for all the things that Tom Coughlin was in terms of like not emotional, but a disciplinarian and those things, I felt like there was an emotional maturity about him when he approached the game. Marty Schottenheimer was by far the most confident coach that I've ever been around, but Marty is the one that I coined the phrase like more games are lost than won, because he would talk about that. He would talk about, guys, if we just take care of the things that we can control, nobody will beat us. Most teams can't beat us. We'll just wait for them to implode. He was like that, and I felt like his fatal flaw was in San Diego. He tried to prove to people that he is a risk taker, and so he would take these risks in the postseason. I'm like, that's not who you really have pretended to be. And then John Gruden, it was his first year as a head coach. He was a little more emotional than that, but you may be right. The guys that I've been most influenced by as a coach were more not flatline from an emotional standpoint, but when it came to risk taking, maybe they were a little more risk adverse than some of the others.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting, man. We just kind of look at like who the influences were, because I think about kind of some of the coaches that I've been around, and it was Jerry Moore when I was in college was just steady. You know, he's a Hall of Fame coach, but he was not too high or too low. He was very under control, calm, never really raised his voice ever. Then you know, I think about when I was in college at Northeast Louisiana. Ed Zombracker was the head coach there, but he had a lot of he was more, he blew up on me a few times, but he was kind of a little more even, but then coaches around him, he had a lot of volatility like around him that way. And then we get Billick was high emotion, you know, he tapped into the passion of the defense. So he brought a lot of energy, confidence, you know, bravado, like that was kind of his deal. And then I had Andy Reid, who was, you know, very even keel, and Romeo Crennel, who never raised his voice. So it is interesting how the different makeup of coaches.
So it's funny. So Andy Reid was an assistant coach in Green Bay when I was there. He was the tight ends coach, then the quarterbacks coach, and he was in charge of the scout team. And I can see that. And DJ, so the common thread between all those guys, like for me coaching, Hall of Famers or Super Bowl winners. And so you start thinking about like what wins and what wins in the pit. There has to be a level of calmness to your demeanor that you can make big decisions under pressure. And what I worry a little bit about Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni, sometimes they're so emotional that I wonder if the emotion drives the decision making. And what you would like to do, and this is something that Bill Walsh said, man, most of your decisions should be made throughout the week. So when you come to the situation, you just look at your sheet and say, hey, here's how we're going to approach it. There shouldn't be this, hey, let's draw it up in the dirt and go. Because most of the time, those things, as much as we like to think about the novelty of making adjustments and all that, a lot of that should be already thought out when you're calm and cool and you just make a decision that's been thoroughly researched and you go with it. I just worry about Dan Campbell because of the risk tape. For Nick Sirianni, I just worry about the emotional stuff creating chaos on the sideline where they can't think. Because it already seems like Philadelphia is chaotic with their team. I just worry about Nick Sirianni pouring a little kerosene on it, making it explode. But I say that and recognizing that Nick Sirianni's won a lot of games, man. His record is one of the best records that you'll find for a young coach that has taken over a program. It's just a little different.
So let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this the other day with when we were talking about Fangio and how Fangio has worked there and didn't work in other places, you know? And so it's having the right kind of kid. What do we always joke about where all Phillies players come from? Georgia and Alabama.
Where they're used to that.
Where they have been mother trucked since the day they stepped on campus. That furnace, they've lived in that furnace and they've known how to respond to that.
I never thought about that, but DJ, you are right when you bring that up, because one of the things that we talked about when we go back to scouting, like why you take players from winning programs and championship programs or whatever, part of that is like the pressure that they've been under and playing in those big games. But when you think about Alabama and Georgia, and I know like there's so many rules and restrictions in terms of what you can ask players now, but you remember when we talk about hard coaching and when you would ask guys like, hey, what's the best way to coach you? Is it walkthroughs, visualization, yelling, screaming, hard coaching? The Philadelphia team, a lot of guys that need hard coaching. A lot of guys that respond to the hard coaching because that's how Kirby Smart goes about doing his business. He loves them up, but man, him and Nick Saban coached them hard. They coach them hard.
No question. So again, I think that's part of the scouting process is finding kids that match your building. And Howie Roseman's done a great job of that. All right, that's a wrap for the lead block presented by T-Mobile for Business. Football needs a network willing to go the extra yard. So do you. Go further with T-Mobile for Business. We haven't forgot about the other game, the Raiders and the Falcons, plus the rookie draft that's coming up right after this. All right, Buck, we don't need to spend a ton of time on it. I wasn't super fired up to watch this game, and I kind of got a reason why after seeing what went down there. Ugly game, Atlanta and the Raiders.
Yeah, ugly game. And a lot of the conversation coming out of the game is going to be Kirk Cousins, right? Kirk Cousins didn't have another had struggled through another performance.
112 yards.
Yeah. I mean, interception, not playing well. My thing is this, though, DJ, right? Because people have talked about Michael Penix being in the bullpen. My thing is, are we going to throw a rookie quarterback in the middle of the thick of the playoff races to be like, okay, Mike, let's go get it? To me, this is something that if you're having those thoughts, don't you want to give him a run up before he has to get into those elimination games and those pressurized games? There's no acclimation period for Michael Penix if you put him in the game right now. We're expecting him to be ready right now. And I don't know if that's fair to a young quarterback to throw him right in the deep end.
Yeah, no, it's getting to the point, man, where it's like, I know the plans, I know what you want to do, but it's, we got Christmas coming up, man. And it's like having that package that you can see it right over there in the corner of the room. I'm kind of curious what's in that package. You know what I mean? Like that, that's to the point where they are. I think listening to Raheem's comments post-game, they're getting close to opening that package. I don't think they wanted to. I don't think that was their plan. They were going to wait till Christmas, but here we are. And that thing's, they're thinking maybe there's a bike in there. Maybe I take that thing around the block a little bit, go play with my friends. I don't know if that package is going to stay unopened much longer, Buck.
So here's what I can say. And I don't think I will out anybody when I say this. So the Jaguars played the Atlanta Falcons in preseason. Michael Penix didn't play, but I had a chance to go down there because I know some guys on the coaching staff and some of the supporting staff, and I was able to pull them aside. Like, hey, man, what's the skinny?
Yeah.
They're like, off the record? They're like, whoo.
Yeah.
Michael Penix is whoo.
Yeah.
a lot of whoa. So then in pregame, what they did, because Michael Penix didn't play, so those guys had to do kind of like what you'll see the Philadelphia Eagles. When the Eagles have inactives, their guys come out in pregame, and that's another practice. That's a rigorous workout. It's not, oh, I'm gonna sit on the side and eat Swedish fish and chill out. And let me just tell you, DJ, Michael Penix and the ball coming out as he's throwing routes on air.
A little whistle to it.
Oh, got a little juice to it. Yeah. And you can just see what everyone was excited about. Now, it's different when you put bodies on the field, but in a simulated game, they told me he lit it up. There's a lot of positivity about him. It's just, man, we're going to drop him. We're going to drop him
right in the playoff
right in the deep end. But, I mean, I think I've told you this story about my kids learning how to swim. So my son, my son learned, there's this guy, Mr. Conrad, Jamaican guy, this and that, and he guaranteed, I can teach your son how to swim in 5 days. And literally, DJ, you take him to the pool, and he's like, oh, okay, what's your name? Trey? Oh, yeah, okay, you got the swim trip song? Boom, right in the water. Ah! My daughter went to a water whisperer, and it was like 6 weeks of sprinkling water on the head, this and that.
Easing into it.
I can tell you, my son was a stronger swimmer for the longest time, and now my daughter can swim now. But it's a different thing. And so maybe just maybe they'll just take Michael Penix and be like, oh yeah, what's that on your? Yeah, give me the floaties. Boop, right in the water. We just kind of figure it out.
I'm telling you, man, like it just feels like the temperature's changing in the room a little bit on that whole decision, and whatever your plans were, they might be a change in here, especially as as Tampa's playing really, really well. So
and Tampa's playing so well. The good thing for the Falcons is they won both of those games, and I would say that the Thursday night game, man, Tampa's going to rue today. They let them come back and kind of steal that one at the end because they outplayed the Falcons for 3.5 quarters, and they allowed the Falcons to swipe one. But yeah, man, Tampa's coming, and they're coming like a bear. And the Falcons have to figure out a way. They're not scoring enough points. They're not productive or explosive. Maybe Michael Penix gives them a little juice. But once you go to him, ain't no turning back.
No question. Yep. Yeah, now you can't drown. You got to find a way to get up to the surface because you're not going back. One thing on the Raiders, and then we'll move on to the rookie draft. But I was just thinking about it with Tom Brady's presence there in that organization. This is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. If they have the first pick, you're going to have the greatest quarterback of all time, who I would imagine is going to be, I would imagine he'll be Zooming with these kids all the time. He's going to be watching film with them. He's going to go work them out, spending all kinds of time with them. Hey, like I think of if you've seen Brady, like his notebooks of preparation that he has, Tom Brady's going to be like, hey, show me your notebook. Like, what have you been doing in college? Like, show me how your preparation, what that looks like on paper. Like, that's going to be fascinating to see how involved he is in this process and what Tom Brady values. Is he looking for himself? Or is he looking for someone, that's maybe more quote unquote a modern quarterback that can really move? And I'm just looking at Shedeur versus Cam Ward. Those are two totally different types of guys, man. Shedeur is more Tom Brady-like, going to sit in the pocket, read it out. And while Cam Ward has got a little more spice to him, he can create, make some more plays with his legs, and he's got more firepower. So that's going to be interesting, man.
It's going to be an interesting debate. And I will say this, and it's funny because I would like to think, and man, I love everything that Tom Brady represents. 6th-round pick, making his way and becoming the greatest quarterback that we've ever seen. The thing is, it's hard for great players sometimes to be able to identify other great players. We saw John Elway struggle with that for a long time. He is one of the more decorated quarterbacks in the National Football League, and they had a hard time finding a quarterback.
Brock Osweiler and Drew Lock, right?
They had a hard time finding a quarterback in the draft. Tom Brady, I think, can be a great resource. He can be a great guide. He can kind of help have those conversations. but there's no guarantee. And I think the thing that the Raiders have to do after they make whatever decisions they make at the end of the season, at some point, the Raiders have to sit in whatever decision they make. They cannot continue to keep turning over coaches and personnel and those things and think that they're going to be good. Consistency and stability is the only way that you have an opportunity to rise to the top. This is a huge decision that they'll make if they have the number 1 overall pick, if they're getting a quarterback, because, man, they haven't. Rich Gannon was the last time they've had a big-time quarterback. Like Rich Gannon, that's years ago.
Derek Carr had 1 or 2 good years in there.
1 or 2 good years. I'm talking about big-time quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is a huge decision. And if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance. And so they got to get this right. So I'm sure Tom Brady's involvement will help them make the decision on whichever quarterback they pick at the top of the draft.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. Let's get to this rookie draft. Last week, I mean, we at least cut in a little bit. I got 1 point off Rhett, and he's still in a little bit of a runaway position here. But we're going to try and reel him in. Rhett's in first place here. We're battling behind him here, Buck. Today, it looks like I believe I have the first pick. So it's going to go me, you, then Rhett. So Rhett has given his board, his little rankings to Nabil. So Nabil will throw his picks in the chat. I'll start us off. I'm going to do what just about all of us have done when we've had the first overall pick. I'm going to go Jaden Daniels with the first pick. I know they play Philly, but that game is at home, and that is a rivalry game. And I think he'll acclimate quite well there, even against that defense. So I'm going to go Jaden Daniels with the first pick. You're up.
Okay. Is this one where we got running backs, or is it 2 wide receivers?
You can take it's a
skill player, whatever skill player.
You can go run back.
I'm gonna take the offensive rookie of the year, Brock Bowers.
Ooh, nice. Okay. Nabil is going to pick for Rhett here. He's got back-to-backers for Rhett. He's going to go BTJ. He's excellent. And he's going to go Ladd McConkey.
What are we doing, Nabil? What are we doing?
That?
Man, taking 2 wide receivers. I don't like that. DJ, who'd you take number 1 overall? Who'd you got?
I took Jaden Daniels. So you are up.
Okay. I need to take a quarterback at some point. I guess I'm going to have to take Bo Nix right now. I'm going to take Bo Nix right now with this pick.
Okay. You're going Bo Nix. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with your namesake because I saw him up close. Bucky Irving went off last week. So I'm going to go Bucky Irving. And then I'm going to also come back with let's see who gosh, it's so hard to go with the Giants players just because they're so bad. But I'm going to have to stick with. They play the Falcons on the road. I'll go Neighbors.
Okay, so when you go Neighbors, I'm going to go Marvin Harrison.
So hold up, you got Rhett. No, yeah, you're up. You're going Marvin. Marvin.
Yeah.
Okay, then Rhett's got his last pick. He's going Drake May. So there you have it. So I've got Jaden Daniels, Bucky Irving, and Malik Neighbors. Bucky is coming with Bowers, Bo Nix, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Rhett has Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, and Drake May. So we'll see if we can cut into this lead a little bit. We've run out of time to catch him here, but hopefully we can reel him in. All right, Buck, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back tomorrow with another fresh episode. We'll see you right here on Move the Sticks.